What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY Studios, and as always, we're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Head on over to any one of their 24 branches or TrueMark.com/PHLY to get started today. A happy Wednesday to each and every one of you. A gloomy Wednesday across the Delaware Valley, but we are here. And some big news coming out of Major League Baseball this last night or into the early portions of the morning, if you're waking up to it, that kind of changed the landscape potentially of what the Phillies were looking to do, because I truly do believe the Phillies were very much in step and linked to a potential Taylor Ward trade, or one of the Angels outfielders for that matter. And we'll talk a little bit about that throughout the show, how it impacts not just the Phillies, but how it also impacts the Angels and the Orioles. Because I have to be honest with you, I think that this trade is questionable from Baltimore's standpoint, but I'll explain to you why in just a second. Here's what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies podcast today. Of course, we're going to start with Taylor Ward heading to the Baltimore Orioles. Kyle Schwarber and Ranger Suárez each declined their qualifying offer. Not surprising that they did that. We'll talk about who did decline. We'll talk about who accepted, because Ethan and I a couple weeks ago kind of went through the list and tried to figure out which of the players that were offered QOs were going to accept them. And Ethan, I think we were 3 for 4 on the list. The only one that we didn't get was Shota Imanaga, and we'll talk more about him in a minute. And we'll wrap up with the Wednesday edition of Remember Me. And because the 40-man rosters were due yesterday, I thought we would have some fun with the Rule 5 draft. That's where our Remember Me comes from today. We'll tell you a little bit more about it later in the show. But hello to you. Welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley here, and you in the chat. Thanks so much for stepping in and hanging out with us on this Wednesday afternoon. Let's start with the big news across Major League Baseball. Taylor Ward traded from the Los Angeles Angels to the Baltimore Orioles. We'll get to the specificity of it in exchange for Grayson Rodriguez. We'll talk more about what it means for those two teams, and again, why I am surprised Baltimore made this move. But first, I think we have to center this conversation around what it means for the Phillies. This is a Phillies podcast after all. I genuinely do believe that the Phillies were in lockstep to be a part of the Taylor Ward trade discussions this offseason. In fact, I think they were part of the conversations to maybe acquire a Taylor Ward at the trade deadline back in July. They ended up going with Harrison Bader instead. Ward doesn't get traded because the Angels had that weird midseason push where they thought maybe they could be a playoff contender. We all knew that they couldn't, but Art Moreno and staff decided that they could and held on to Taylor Ward for some sort of a playoff push. So the conversation about the Angels outfield was they probably have one too many. And whether it was going to be Taylor Ward that got moved or Jo Adell that got moved, I think the Phillies and a lot of teams were going to be in the conversation for one of those guys. I made it very, very clear at the trade deadline that if the Phillies, or really any team, was going to acquire one of Adell or Taylor Ward, I think the better play would be to go get Jo Adell. I think he's the better player, point blank. That also would entail giving up more for a multitude of reasons. Adell is younger. He's more team controllable. The contract is significantly more reasonable than the $12-ish million that Taylor Ward is about to get in his final year of arbitration. And of course, the looming thought of Taylor Ward being a free agent at the end of this season. You would have had a year and a half of him at the trade deadline. Now instead, the Orioles get him for one season. So when it came to that conversation, I was very much in the camp of, if you're going to spend for an Angels outfielder, spend the extra bit and go get Jo Adell. Now, we talked about this guy in our Discord a lot, Jo Adell, that is, and the defensive metrics versus what your eyeballs tell you. And the defensive metrics for a Jo Adell are like, wow, this guy's defensive metrics are awful. And then I've watched him make some big plays, but the bat started to come alive midway through the season last year. It was a guy that was always a highly touted prospect, and the power started to emerge last season. But with Taylor Ward, you have a pretty steady, consummate professional hitter in Taylor Ward. The worry for me was the strikeout rate. And the worry for me still is the strikeout rate. Last year, he finished in the 16th percentile of strikeout rate at 26.4%. And his average, because of it, was just 228. His OBP, 317. But you know what Taylor Ward does well. He barrels the ball at a really solid rate, 84th percentile. He doesn't chase. He whiffs at a pretty good rate as well. And there you see the home runs are the big deal. He had 36 home runs last year. It was a career high, 103 RBI for him, 69 extra base hits. And you take the bad, which is the low average and the high strikeout, with the overwhelming good of the power numbers that Taylor Ward portrayed. The reason I was less excited about Taylor Ward at the deadline as I would have potentially been this time of the year is because I thought Taylor Ward's second half of the season was sensational. Those are the season numbers as a whole. Ethan, let's take a look at the numbers that we produced when Taylor Ward was the player that we were discussing in trade conversations. This was back when the Angels had played about 78 games, so it's double the season or half of Taylor Ward's season, and you see how much the numbers became inflated in the second half of the year, and it's why Taylor Ward ended up going for a former highly touted prospect like Grayson Rodriguez. In the final 70-some-odd games of the year, he hit another 17 home runs. He drove in another 50. He had another 30-plus extra base hits. And most of the numbers, in fact, all of the numbers in that second slash line went in the right direction. The average went up about 20 points. The OBP went up about 40 points. The slug and the OPS both went up pretty sizably. The OPS specifically went up almost 60 points. It was a really good second half of the year for Taylor Ward. You saw the strikeout rate improved slightly. The chase rates remained high. The squared up rates were good. The barrel rates were good. And so it was a good second half of the year for Taylor Ward, and I think it's why the Angels were able to capitalize on this deal. There is no question in my mind the Phillies would have benefited from a player like Taylor Ward in their lineup, even with the deficiencies that we've just talked about. The low average, the high strikeout rate, which, by the way, is in fact going in the wrong direction over the last couple of seasons. Last year was at 24.6%, or 2 years ago in 2024 was at 24.6%. Last year was up to 26%. That number, by the way, from 2023 was up from 19%. So the strikeout rates have gone in the wrong direction over the last couple of seasons. A higher walk rate last year than he had than he did in 2024, and that was in part to an improved chase rate and a better than average whiff rate, which was at 55%. The one thing with Taylor Ward that I think people in Philly would be very excited about, and sometimes it works in his favor and sometimes it doesn't, is his first pitch swing percentage. It's 26.4%. That's low in a positive for people around the Philadelphia area who have sat through a lot of first pitch swinging from Nick Castellanos and from a bulk of this Phillies lineup over the last couple of seasons. His chase rates are, again, amongst some of the league's best at 20.7% last year. He's in the 92nd percentile. That's gone in the right direction each of the last 3 seasons. The reason that he falls behind sometimes is because his zone swing was a career low of 53.7%. So maybe you could say Taylor Ward is sitting and looking at some good pitches go by early in the count, and there has to be that balance somewhere in between. All of this is to say, there is no doubt in my mind that the Phillies were not only interested in Taylor Ward, but Taylor Ward would have made their offense better by the power productivity. But I think in this particular instance, based on the trade value that the Angels got back, and I know that Grayson Rodriguez hasn't pitched since 2024, but he is a former top 10 prospect, the Phillies would not have balked at the cost of Taylor Ward. Would it have cost Andrew Painter? Probably not. But would it have been a pretty sizable return package for a 1-year rental? Yes, it absolutely would have. Could you have acquired him and extended him? Absolutely. He's only going to be 32 by the end of the season. For the Phillies' sake, that's not old. Even for Major League Baseball's sake, that's not old. But I think in that, in the vacuum of the Phillies versus other teams' acquirability of Taylor Ward, I don't think the Phillies were going to make the move for the value that the Angels were looking for. I think it's why the Phillies balked at a Taylor Ward trade in July. I also think it's part of the reason as to why was because, again, the Angels had some delusions of competition. But I think in this particular instance, with 1 year left on his deal, with the numbers being the power numbers being really good, the average being what it is, the strikeout rates being pretty low, I think the Phillies ended up balking at the return on investment. And that to me is why Taylor Ward never felt like it was going to happen, even though his name had been paired to the Phillies for, I don't know, Ethan, what is it now? 2.5 years, basically. Really since 2024. 25 home runs in 2024, 36 in 25, and now into the offseason of the 26th season. His name has been paired with the Phillies forever. But quite frankly, it never felt like the right fit based on what the Angels were asking as a return on investment. Now, before we get into my surprise of the trade, I want to welcome our second member of today's program into the show. That's our producer, Ethan Hartley. Where did you stand, Ethan, when it came to the likelihood of a Taylor Ward trade to the Phillies, really over the last 2 seasons now?
It's hard because it became such a small sample size of when he's been good. It kind of felt like Harrison Bader a little bit, where you look at the career kind of player you're getting, and it wasn't amazing, but you really had to buy in on just the narrow stretch of where he was playing best.
Mm-hmm. Is it strange to say? So I look at Taylor Ward's numbers. As his power has upticked, his average and OBP have gone in the wrong direction. Is it strange to say, if Taylor Ward had the 23 home run, 281, 360 OBP that he had in 2022, I would have been more interested, even though the home runs went up basically 50% compared to what we saw last year. The RBI went up, like that year that I mentioned, 2022, 65 RBI. This past year, 103. It was the 6th most in the American League. His walk rates were tremendous this year. 75 walks were in the top 10. He also struck out in the top 10 in the American League, which was expected for a guy that has a big power gap compared to his strikeout rate. But I almost look at that 281, 23 home run season and would have felt way more intrigued as the type of player the Phillies could use than the 36 home run season that he produced last year, which is counterintuitive to what the Phillies are looking for, which is a power right-handed hitter. That's almost where I'm at this point. I guess my interest in Taylor Ward was average. My interests at the price point was minimal.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot when you look at the grand scheme of things, and what LA is getting back is, we were going to touch on it later, is that a player who Baltimore was probably fed up with, as much as, injuries aren't to the point or to the fault of a player to some extent. It was time to get somebody different, someone that they, now fill a role in, a player that they let go in the offseason a couple of years ago. So, I mean, I get it. I think it is a hefty price when you look at the grand scheme of things, and I don't think the Phillies have that kind of player that would fit that to give up. So you're giving up players that I think ultimately have higher upside for LA to buy into versus, a guy that's pitched, shown promise, but has a major flaw in his health.
So I'm going to say this. I am not surprised Taylor Ward was traded. The Angels were not good last year. The Angels are now entering their third rebuild in the last decade, none of which have worked. By the way, Anthony Rendon, totally unrelated, finally on the last year of his deal in LA. He's played 250 some odd games in 5 seasons. I'm not surprised Taylor Ward was traded. He's in the final year of his arbitration deal. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2027. I'm also not surprised that Taylor Ward was traded for a starting pitcher. The Angels had the 3rd worst team ERA in baseball last year. And the 3rd worst starting pitching ERA in baseball. It was a 4.91. Only the Rockies and the Nationals had worse starting pitching ERA. The Rockies were above 6 as a starting pitching staff. They had a minus 164 run differential, 490 runs allowed from their starting pitching this season. So I am not surprised whatsoever that the Angels wanted to get a starting pitcher and a young, controllable starting pitcher like Grayson Rodriguez. I know, as you said, hasn't pitched since July of 24, but if he can be healthy, which is an if, it's not a when, it's an if, but if he can be healthy in 26 and beyond, the stuff is there.
Yeah, you could have an ace.
Like 4-pitch mix, 96-mile-an-hour fastball, chase rates, whiff rates, K rates, all above 72nd percentile in 2024. That's ace-level stuff if he's healthy. Has only appeared in, I think it's 43 games in his major league career, mostly due in part to missing all of last year and a chunk of 2024. But the changeup's really, really good, or was the last time he took the mound. Opponents hit 161. They had a 32% K rate, 35% whiff rate. Fastball is good. First pitch strike rates were going in the right direction. He was the 2022 6th-ranked prospect in baseball. 2023, he was the 7th-ranked prospect in baseball. All of this to say, Ethan, a team that desperately needed pitching took a chance on a former really highly rated starting pitcher with premier level upside if he's healthy.
Which makes a lot of sense, and I think is a move that certainly makes a lot of sense for the Angels in terms of their long-term projectability. Are you going to give Taylor Ward an extension? Probably not. So you would just end up walking, and you get a guy who, I mean, you could really be decisive about this, whether, coming off a bunch of injuries but still having high upside is better than just flat out being bad when, actually pitching. And mechanics are a big thing. I mean, who knows what they see in the stuff that when he's pitched and, what they could turn that into.
And so this is where it gets me to the questionable part of this. I am surprised that the Orioles made this move. I don't know how you feel, but I think the Orioles are going to offensively bounce back in 26. I think they're too talented not to. You think about Gunnar, who was great again last year, is an MVP quality candidate. Jackson Holliday, Adley Rutschman bounce back, assuming he doesn't get traded. Colton Cowser bounce back. Full season of Samuel Basallo. That's a really good offense. Now, I'm not saying it's really never a bad thing to go get a guy who hit 36 home runs a year ago. But for the Orioles, they are absolutely devoid of pitching and gave up a former top prospect to make this move. We talked about the Angels starting pitching. The O's wasn't much better. They were 7th worst in starting pitching ERA. They had the 10th worst whip, but they were .03 away from being the 4th worst. There was 6 teams lumped in a very small sample size. They had the 4th worst opponent batting average, 265. They had 7 different guys make double-digit starts, and only Trevor Rogers pitched to not a sub-2, because he was excellent, not a sub-3, a sub-4 ERA. Their starting pitching was awful last year, and they gave up a guy who, while hasn't pitched since 24, if he was healthy, could have been a guy that was part of that rotation. They gave up a potential premier starter to get a known quantity of a very good power hitter. Now, I will say this. It's very clear the Orioles offense missed Anthony Santander in 2025. Now, Santander was not good for Toronto, was limited with injuries and didn't hit very well. But I'm talking about the Santander that left Baltimore, who hit 44 home runs and signed a massive contract. That guy was sorely missed in 2025 because he was a switch hitter, but had some damage from the right side the power portion of the right side of the plate. So from that perspective, I get going to get Taylor Ward, but it does just feel like you needed more pitching, and unless you're going out to sign a pitcher, which they certainly still could do. How many times, Ethan, have we talked about, Ranger Suárez makes a lot of sense for Baltimore? That could still be in the cards. They could get Dylan Cease. They could get, who else is did Michael King decline his?
Yeah, he
declined his QO.
Was not one of the 4.
Could be a Michael King. Could be another trade on the horizon. They have a plethora of prospects still, even with most of their guys making the ascension. I'm not saying that they're not going to make other moves, but on the surface, I am a little surprised that they went and got a 1-year power bat for the potential of a guy who could be a legit top-of-the-line starter if he gets healthy.
Yeah, I think in terms of initial talks in the offseason, they must feel better about what they're able to acquire or trade for in terms of what's left out there. I mean, as you mentioned, they do have a plethora of prospects left. They had one of the best pools a couple of years ago. Now a lot of those guys moving up, but still pieces keep coming up. It does leave a lot if nothing does happen on Kyle Bradish, who I think probably has the highest ceiling out of everybody after coming off an injury and has showed a lot of promise. But again, you're talking like him, Trevor Rogers, who was phenomenal and seems to have his mechanics back, but was also really bad at one point. So you can you can see in the numbers, how bad he can be.
So here's the leaders in market value that are available: Framber Valdez, Ranger Suárez, Dylan Cease, Michael King, Lucas Giolito, Zach Gallen. Now Shota Imanaga accepted, so he's off the table. Brandon Woodruff accepted, he's off the table. They do still have to make a decision on Zach Eflin, who is an unrestricted free agent.
Right, yeah.
And then the list gets You're talking about like the Zach Littells of the world, the Aaron Savali's, the Chris Bassett's. Like, there's a 6 or 7 pretty premium arms out there, and then it gets to be like those are 4s and 5s. I think very quickly.
I think Zach Gallen makes a lot of sense. I was very surprised.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about it a little later.
Yeah, Gallen would make sense. Still only 30 years old. But I do think the Orioles have to go get another move.
100%.
Another pitcher before the make another move in free agency. All right, let's pause. On the other side, we're going to talk about the qualifying offers, but I also want to get into Kyle Schwarber's free agency in greater detail. Jeff Passan wrote an article and has been speaking about Kyle Schwarber for a while now. First of all, there's a team that, they're apparently linked to Kyle Schwarber. Okay, sure. We'll talk more about that and how. And then on the other side of that conversation, could Kyle Schwarber's value continue to rise? And then, of course, we will get into Remember Me as the show unfolds as well. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we'll be right back after this. All right, as you get set for another week of pro sports, you've got pro football tomorrow. You've got college football throughout the week, hockey, basketball, whatever it may be. If you call yourself a sports fan, you have to get Xfinity. There's no lagging, buffering, switching between apps, trying to find the games. You get all of your favorite teams and the best games all in one place. It becomes the ultimate sports destination. And it's the perfect fan flex. You get all of the action right there in your living room. Plus, with Xfinity's best picture and sound enhanced with 4K, you're going to feel like you're at the arena, the stadium, the ballpark, anyway, and you don't have to leave your couch to do it. And sometimes you can have 4 games going at once, because why not? You can. And especially with college football and pro football on each and every weekend, you want to be able to watch as many games as you possibly can. And you get real-time notification and live stats right there on your TV. It is the best seat in the house every single time. So next game day, make sure that big fan in your life isn't a big fail. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. All right, and when you're thinking about popping the question to that special someone, you know that it is a little bit of a nerve-wracking experience. You're thinking about different options. You're thinking about your price points, the 5 C's. There's a lot of questions that you have. If you had those questions like I did, you have to head on over to Bucci Jewelry and Design, because our friends over at Bucci Jewelry and Design have been doing it for decades. It's our friend Joe and Michelle, and they are game changers because they treat you like one of one. You're not just another customer walking through the door. They want to make sure you get a personalized experience, from the initial consultation of figuring out what you want to get, how much you want to spend, what your thoughts are on cut and cushion and clarity. They explain it all to you, and then their team will design something completely custom right there in-house. There's no pressure, no pushy sales vibes. It's just good people who do what they love, and they love what they do. So if you're thinking about making that big move and popping the question to your special someone, head on over to Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design. 30 plus years in the game, voted Philly's #1 jeweler year after year, over 1,000 5-star reviews. You can check them out today at BucciJewelers.com and tell them the guys at PHLY sent you. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli and Ethan Hartley here. Hello to everybody in the chat. Broad Street Bullies, Ray Schumacher, David Roska, Elephant in the Room, Futz, Alex Green, RF, Molly and Barkley's Life. Everybody that's here, thank you so much for being a part of today's show. I really appreciate you. Kyle Schwarber, his free agency remains super intriguing because we all expect, not only is Kyle Schwarber going to get a big deal, a multi-year deal, he's going to shatter the record for designated hitter-only type of players in terms of the record-setting money that he's going to make. But we all expected the suitors to be pretty vast in number. And we expected any team that wants to spend money, including the Phillies, who Jeff Passan writes in his article, are fiending to re-sign him. That's the word he used. We expected there to be a lot of competition to sign Kyle Schwarber between not just the Phillies, but Boston, Chicago, Cincinnati, his hometown team. All of these teams have been mentioned time and time and time again, and it's no surprise that the Phillies are, first of all, big-time players, because I still believe that Kyle Schwarber is back, and Ethan, I believe you do as well, right? I think we both are in lockstep that Kyle Schwarber will be back. What the contract looks like is the intriguing part. To me, it's really not about the money. Like, I expect him to get a huge salary, upwards of $30 million. Jeff Passan wrote that the amount of offers will likely bump him to more than 30. Did I say 30,000? $30 million.
I think you said
$30 million a year. Because he says the winning team isn't going to get a one-dimensional player, plate discipline, good against lefties, good with two strikes, everything we've laid out throughout the last two seasons. He expects it to be over $30 million a year, which is kind of where we were. I said 4 for 130, which is $32.5 million a year. If they have to go to the fifth year, they have to go to the fifth year. I don't love it, but it's somebody who is a DH only. I think will remain relatively healthy. You assume I think the swing speed is not going anywhere. The power is not going anywhere. Maybe years 4 and 5 start to become a little bit of a dip, but I think the first 3 years is 34, 35, 36 seasons. I don't expect any kind of significant downturn. Do I expect him to hit 56 home runs again next year? Maybe not, but mid-40s. He's hit 40 on average. I think it's 46 per year now on average since his time in Philly. Because I think it was like 42 or 43, and then he had the 56 home run season. The point is, not only do I expect the Phillies to be probably front-running favorites to re-sign him, I do expect a lot of teams to be involved. The one team that Jeff Passan reported on, though, was like, like when in cartoons, when you see like Roadrunner or Wile E. Coyote or whatever, and they see something coming and their eyes get like 50 times the size.
Yeah,
they bulge. They bulge out of their face. That was like the eye-opening statement was, Jeff Passan reports that the Pittsburgh Pirates are interested in Kyle Schwarber. Now, the report was that the Pirates offered Josh Naylor upwards of $80 million before he re-signed in Seattle. But the Pirates have not signed a multi-year free agent that was not their own player, like re-sign their own player, to a multi-year contract since Ivan Nova in 2016. I'm no mathematician, but that was a decade ago. We're talking about a decade ago was the last time the Pirates signed a multi-year free agent, and it was Ivan Nova. And now the Pirates all of a sudden are involved in not just Josh Naylor, which is a pretty big swing for them, but also Kyle Schwarber, which is amongst the biggest swings of free agency. This is one of those reports. I trust Jeff Passan implicitly. I think Jeff Passan's the best reporter in baseball, in my opinion. You can have others. If you disagree, that's totally fine. It's a subjective thing. I think Jeff Passan is the most reputable, objective reporter in the game. I also think some of his clapbacks on Twitter are phenomenal when people start to come after him. I looked at this and I went, that's not the real Jeff Passan. That's Pef Jasson. You know what I mean? Somebody makes a fake account and they blow up because they put out fake reports. I'm like, that's Pef Jasson. It's not really Jeff Passan because there's no way. And then in the article he writes, what was it, yesterday? Yesterday at 7 a.m., that the Pittsburgh Pirates are very much in play. He says teams have made it abundantly clear, all the way from the obvious suitors, the Phillies, this is where he used the word fiending to re-sign him, and the not so obvious, yes, Pittsburgh is in on Schwarber as well. So it makes me think, Ethan, after Paul Skeens wins Cy Young, and the report just happens to come out that he's telling his teammates he wants to be a Yankee and blah, blah, blah. And then he says, oh, no, winning is going to happen in Pittsburgh and we're going to do it as a team and all. Spare me. You hate Pittsburgh. We all know it. You're going to be a Yankee or a Dodger or a Met or something in the near future. But it does seem like interesting timing that all of a sudden the Pirates are now going to come out and say, oh, yeah, we're interested in Kyle Schwarber right after this Paul Skeens stuff starts to unfold. it really feels kind of an interesting timing. Now, Futz puts out in the chat too, like this could absolutely just be a good faith thing. Like telling you, we tried, we gave it a shot, we tried, our name was in the running. Oh, don't look into how much we actually offered, but our name was in the running. That certainly could be plausible too. But this is an organization that has refused to spend money for countless years now. And I'm going to do this on the fly, so I'm sorry about this. Let's go back and take a look at what the Pirates' salaries have been over the last decade, including heading into this year right now. Obviously, players need to be re-signed and stuff, Ethan, so numbers are a little bit skewed because like the Phillies are only at $179 million. They're going to spend more than $179 million. Right now, the Pittsburgh Pirates' total payroll allocation for the players on their roster is $31 million. That's going to change because they have to sign arbitration guys and bring guys back and stuff. But it's $31 million as of right now. But you can even go into last year. Last year, with a full roster, they were $84 million, 27th in Major League Baseball. The year prior, 2024, they were at $85 million, 29th in Major League Baseball, which is second to last. 2023, they were at $75 million, 28th in Major League Baseball. 2022, $56 million, 28th. You get my point. I don't need to go back a decade. We went back the last 4 years. That's plenty. You get my point. This is an organization that has routinely told you, we ain't spending money. I'm pocketing everything. I feel bad for Pirates fans. They're good fans. Their stadium's beautiful. They come out and support, especially early. They recognize, it's basically Rob Schneider in The Waterboy. Oh no, we suck again. Like on repeat. But like that's what being a Pirates fan has to be like. Being like, I guess I'll go to the ballpark. Tickets are $4 on game time. But the point is, like, you've been in the bottom 5 of spending each of the last 5 years. And I know for a fact I can go back further than that and you're in that spot as well. All of a sudden, you're going to tell me that, yeah, we're interested in Josh Naylor and Kyle Schwarber and all this. And Broad Street Bullies brings up the point of like, maybe they are recognized. Maybe a salary cap or a salary floor is coming. It's something I've advocated for 2 years now. We've talked about it plenty, Ethan, about the salary cap floor being something that could structurally be put in place. Maybe they do know that and they have to get above that precipice. But it is surprising to go from like, oh no, we don't have any money. We're the measly Pittsburgh Pirates. We can't spend any money. To like, we're gonna sign Kyle Schwarber. That seems like an incremental, not an incremental leap. That's a sizable, like gigantic leap.
It doesn't even seem like someone who fits. Like there's only so much time left that Kyle has. Like, do you really think they're gonna craft a World Series championship roster around him during that time?
Outside of Paul Skeens, he immediately becomes their best player.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking about a roster of like just dudes right now. Like it's a bunch of dudes who are like, cusp major league players. Brian Reynolds been a good player for a while.
O'Neal
Cruz is obviously
Cruz,
that.
Yeah.
I think Schwarber's better than O'Neal Cruz.
Oh, 100%.
But O'Neal Cruz is the name, right?
Yeah.
Elite athlete, just like you watch him play and he makes like the majestic plays. Throws the ball 100 miles an hour from short when he was playing short. Exit velo. They would have crazy exit velos between him and O'Neal Cruz. But like it's a team of a bunch of dudes and Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz and Paul Skeens. And they've had some good bullpen pieces along the way. Dennis Santana was a name we thought about. Maybe would they trade at the deadline? And I've always been a Mitch Keller fan, even though like I think Mitch Keller's a better pitcher than his numbers indicate.
Yeah,
it's a fine, and they've got Bubba Chandler on the way, or pitched a little bit last year. He's gonna probably be in the rotation full time next year. But like that would be an amazing change. Plus, RF points it out. At 34 years old, you want to go play for the team that routinely loses 95 plus games? I wouldn't. I know it's a business. I've said it's a business time and time again. And there is merit to saying, I'd like to go home, which is why Cincinnati's in play. There's merit to say, I've played in Boston, I've played in Fenway, I'd like to go back to those places too. Merit there. Merit to say I want to re-sign in Philly. I'm here now. We've done nothing but win since I've been here. We're on the cusp of being, or maybe on the cusp of being routinely being a playoff team. That's what they've been for a while. that makes sense. If LA offers a big deal, if San Diego offers a big, like all, teams that have been in the running make sense. Pittsburgh just absolutely doesn't make sense at all for this conversation. So when I saw that report, I legitimately had to like triple check that this was actually Jeff Passan. But this does tell me that not only are the expected teams, the Phillies, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Reds, going to be in play, I think pretty much everybody's in play for Kyle Schwarber. In terms of the teams that are willing to spend, I don't think the Rays are in play. I don't think the White Sox are in play. But like teams that are willing to spend money, if Pittsburgh's in the conversation, everybody's in the conversation. All right, let's pause on the other side. We do still have to get to the qualifying offers that were accepted. Kyle Schwarber did not. Not surprising. Neither did Ranger Suárez. Phillies add a couple of players to their 40-man roster, and we have to finish up today, as we always do, with our Wednesday Remember Me segment. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we will be right back after this. All right, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Find out why 90 million users have teamed up with Bet365, who are the pioneers of live in-game betting. You can live stream 780,000 events each and every year across 78 different sporting platforms. It's not just pro football or basketball or hockey or baseball. You can get in on everything across the globe, from things that you know to things that you don't. There's always live in-game lines going on, and you can get in with the action with our friends over at Bet365. And right now, new users deposit $10, place a bet for $5 by using the promo code PHLY365. You'll get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. You find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, what's up, everybody? Listen, you know playing championship level games or season takes a lot of effort. And you know who has championship level effort this Black Friday, every single day leading up to Black Friday? That's our friends over at Elkin Chevrolet, right off of Route 73, south of Marlton. It's a three-man team. It's Jason, it's Adam, it's Josh. They're three brothers who love what they do, and they're in the store daily, calling the plays and delivering wins. No strikeouts, no balks. It's just great hometown squad with a deep bench of Chevys and Black Friday deals that will make you cheer. They call it a honkin' good service, and trust me, it is in fact a home run. So if you're scouting for a new Chevy or a pre-owned MVP, make your next move to Elkin Chevrolet. It's real brothers, real deals, and a whole lot of honkin' good service. Shop now at elkinchevrolet.com. Together, let's drive. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli here, Ethan Hartley with us as well. Bill Matt says Pittsburgh is barely a place. I've never been to Pittsburgh, so I can't comment on the city.
I've been to Pittsburgh.
PNC is gorgeous. PNC, the ballpark itself, just from like the optics, it's a beautiful stadium. I am like, it's one of the 3 or 4 ballparks I am dying to get to. Have you been to PNC?
I've not been to PNC, but I've been to
You've
Pittsburgh.
been to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
What's the vibe in Pittsburgh like?
It's chill. I have a buddy that goes to...
It exists?
Yeah. I have a buddy that goes to farm school at Duquesne. So
okay.
I've gone out there
Did
to
you
see
say
him.
farm school?
Pharmacy.
Oh, pharmacy
yes.
school.
No,
I was like, goes to farm school? I'm like, you gotta go to Iowa for that. That's Nebraska.
That's a real thing.
I'm sure agriculture is absolutely.
Yeah.
But like not in Pittsburgh.
There's a cool clip from the Eagles show where they were talking about one of the players, and he got like it was a 5th-year senior getting his master's in like agriculture, and then Zach and Bo had a good laugh because it's like, what does that mean?
So I had a buddy who got his degree in turf management.
Now that's cool. I've seen that.
I thought that originally I was like, that sounds terrible. But I looked into it and it's like, oh yeah, you could basically be like the curator of a country club. That sounds a lot more appealing than like learning about different types of grass.
Mm-hmm. It was agriculture leadership. That's what the 5th-year senior title had.
So what are you, like the boss at the farm?
Yeah, no, that was the joke.
Is that what you're going for?
Yeah.
You're trying to be like the guy?
Yeah. Tell them, hey, you need to harvest these crops in 10 minutes.
Let me ask you a question, totally unrelated to the show right now, but I have a question for you. So each and every winter, starting at about this time, and it culminates like the last 2 weeks of December, I put together a list of my top 10 albums of the year. And it's subjective. It's really just what I thought my favorite albums were.
Mm-hmm.
If a band or an artist re-releases an album, let's say 20th anniversary, or like the album was recorded in somebody's basement and now they're big and they did it in an actual studio.
Okay.
Does the re-released album count as candidate for album of the year?
Depends.
What's the qualification behind it? Is it a time thing? Is it a quality thing?
I think it's
Do
really,
they have to add new songs?
I think it's really unique. I would say anniversary doesn't count.
Yeah.
But I think of going back to Pittsburgh, Mac Miller, his estate released one of his mixtapes from like 10 years ago.
I think that's different. If it was it ever published?
Not like officially, but like there were versions of it you could find like online. So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So I agree with you on that. So last year, the reason I ask is because it's happening again this year, but last year, one of the bands that I really like is a band called The Amity Affliction. And they put out an album called Let the Ocean Take Me. And they reproduced the whole thing. They went into the studio again and re-recorded the whole thing, dropped the tuning. You know, as you get older, you don't have the same range.
Mm-hmm.
Pitches change and things like that. Dropped the tuning, made it a little heavier. Sounds fuller, sounds cleaner. But it's all the same songs. That doesn't count, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just the only reason I'm asking is because I'm running into that again this year.
Yeah.
Where one of the albums that I love was re-released and remastered, really, and I don't think it qualifies, but I wanted to make sure.
There would have to be like substantial, like I think your basement example makes a lot of sense because there are obviously major differences between like studio space and then making everything from scratch on just your own personal instruments.
Yeah, this does not fall into that category.
Yeah.
So I should exclude this from the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I thought so too, but I wanted to get another opinion. Appreciate that. Let's get back to the baseball conversation for just a second here. I want to get into the qualifying offers that were accepted and declined. We're going to kind of breeze through the Phillies real quick because we expected Schwarber and Ranger to decline their qualifying offers. But I will say this. I was surprised at how many players accepted the qualifying offer, especially compared to years past. I believe the stat was there was 14 players who have accepted the qualifying offer over the last 10 years, maybe. And there were 4 accepted it this year. So the 4 that accepted the qualifying offer, 3 of them we expected. Was Trent Grisham. You and I were in lockstep on that. Was Brandon Woodruff, who we were like 50-50 on, but I think we decided was going to get it because of the injury history and things like that. The other one was Gleyber Torres, right? Torres accepted it as well, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we were pretty much in on that. The interesting one is Shota Imanaga. Now, Ethan, I think you and I tossed it about a little bit. We're like, maybe Imanaga takes it. He declined the $20 million option, accepts the $22 million option. Now, I'm surprised Imanaga accepted it because of his age. I think he's a little bit older. Obviously, he hasn't been in the league terribly long, but pitched in Japan for a while. He's a little bit older. I am a little bit surprised that Imanaga accepted it, thinking about what's to come potentially in 2027. So what this tells me is that Imanaga's camp was getting some indications that his free agency was not going to be as lucrative as some of the other starters. In terms of Ranger, in terms of Framber Valdez, even Zach Gallen, who's a couple years younger than Imanaga, coming off of up and down season. That to me, Ethan, tells me that Shota Imanaga's camp was like, you might not like what you're about to get. And so take the 22, pocket $22 million, and then hit free agency next year.
Yeah. And
pitch well.
Yeah.
Stay healthy, and then see what you can get next year.
And if worst comes to worst, time is missed because of the lockout, can just go back to Japan where it's more familiar territory.
Sure. I mean, maybe, and I didn't even think about that. There may be a thought in his camp of like, I don't know how much longer he wants to pitch in Major League Baseball before potentially heading back home.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about that outlet to it, but there's definitely a case to be made. So he is 32 years old, I believe, right now. And I believe he will be 33 midway through the season. So by the time 2027 rolls around, he'll be heading into his 33 season, back end 34 by the time 27, his birthday hits in 27. If there's a lockout, and maybe he does say, hey, I want to go back and pitch in Japan while there's a lockout, does he return? Maybe not. You know what I mean? That's a fair point that I didn't even think about. But I think Shota Imanaga is a really good two. Mm-hmm. I think he was brought in to be an ace, and at times has pitched like an ace. Like last year, 2.9 ERA in his 29 starts, finished 5th in the Cy Young voting, was really, really good. Last year, down year, through less innings, of course, strikeout rates came down pretty significantly. So last year, or 2024, he struck out just about a batter per inning pitched. Last year, he was at 117 through 145 innings. The contact rates were better against him. Hitters started to lay off that splitter a little bit more. And we know he doesn't throw overly hard, 92, 93. He relies upon the splitter and relies upon a lot of chase rate to get his work done. And I still think there's a lot of value in Shota Imanaga. But like you could see in 2024, his chase rate was in the 97th percentile, 84th percentile last year, still really good, but dipped 13%. Guys are starting to lay off that pitch a little bit more. We know he likes to live in the strike zone, especially with the non-splitter pitches, fastball, changeup, sweeper a little bit, because his walk rates are so good. 94th percentile in 2024, 96th percentile in 2025. The problem that he saw last year was he started getting hit around a little bit harder in terms of average exit velocity and things like that. 88 miles an hour in 2024, 90 miles an hour, got down to the 11th percentile. Barrel rates were in the 6th percentile. Hard hit rates were 24th percentile. When Imanaga gets hit, he gets hit hard. But he does have a good ability to miss a lot of bats, especially with that splitter, which is one of the better pitches in baseball, I still believe. I think he's best suited to have a legit ace ahead of him. So you think about like if there's a Skeens, Skubal, Crochet, Wheeler, Sanchez type of guy ahead of him, that really suits Imanaga well, especially if you've got one of those dudes who throws 97, 98, and then the next day you've got lefty coming in 90, 91 with a wipeout splitter. Really messes with the psyche of hitters. I still think Imanaga's got a lot of really good baseball ahead of him. I am a little bit surprised he accepted the QO.
Yeah, it is very interesting just from the turnaround of opting out and then presumably getting an idea of the field of cash that could be offered to him and then, kind of choosing the other way. It's not very... He kind of almost controlled his own destiny in that regard. I think of like Woodruff, who was injured a lot and kind of was backed more into a corner where it was a little more expected that he's not going to get a lot of money because there are so many concerns.
Sure.
But
and the thing with Woodruff is too, like when he pitches extremely well.
Yeah, and he was great when he came back.
It's just a matter of he's missed several years at this point because of injury.
Yeah, so it is just very interesting that he took that path versus someone like Woodruff or even Grisham. Like you look at the grand scope of his career and he had like one good year in San Diego and then kind of pops up again a couple of years later. So for them, I think their options are more limited versus Imanaga.
Versus a Ranger.
Yeah.
Who I think is going to have a lot of suitors because of the things that we talked about the other day. Good control, good mix. When he's on, the one thing we've talked about plenty is like, I've watched pretty much every Ranger start. And when Ranger is dealing, you'll see a 3 or 4 fastballs at like 91 up in the zone and guys stare at it. And you're like, what are you waiting on? Because they're expecting one of the other 6 pitches that he throws, and they go, oh, wow, 91 jumped on me quick because I was expecting 81 mile an hour slider or whatever. And so with Ranger, he does all of those intangible pitcher stuff. Really, really, we've said it before. He's a pitcher's pitcher, and he does all those stuff so well. I expect him to have a pretty lucrative free agent case. Now, really quickly, before we get to Remember Me, The Phillies and every team were required to submit their 40-man roster by 6 p.m. yesterday. Of note, 3 players were added to the 40. Andrew Painter, Gabriel Rincones Jr., and Alex McFarland. McFarland is the one that probably is the least likely to be on the Major League roster at any point next season. Rincones is interesting because I'll be honest with you, Ethan, I think if Rincones was right-handed, he would have a legitimate shot at being the starting right fielder next year because the power is there. He had a really weak start to the year. It was a rough start. He bounced back really nicely, ended up hitting 18 home runs, driving in 73 in AAA. The average was 240. It was what it was. He did strike out 114 times in 119 games. A lot of that came in the early portion of the season when he struggled with the elevation to AAA. But his OPS was just under 800. His slug was 430. I think that's something that can be improved upon as he gets a little bit older. Or as he gets a little bit more seasoned, I should say. He is 24. He's been a professional for a while. As he gets a little bit more seasoned in professional baseball, but he did have 41 extra base hits last year. I really do think if he were right-handed, he'd have a chance to be the Phillies starting right fielder next year. But because he's lefty and they have a plethora of left-handed hitters, I think he probably starts the year in AAA. Andrew Painter, obviously, the big one. Expected, they weren't going to let him hit the Rule 5 draft.
Yeah.
Are you expecting Painter in 26?
I would hope so.
Are you expecting Painter on opening day? Because I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm thinking probably May, June.
It would probably have to be like a miraculous turnaround and just
or
comes into spring training.
Rash of injuries that we didn't expect.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm expecting Painter probably May or June.
Yeah, I think he needs a little bit of time just building back into things.
I do think there is a chance Rincones plays Major League Baseball next year. I just don't think it's a lot of it, and I don't think it's as a starter.
It's probably kind of like the hockey trial, and give him a little bit of time early on to just kind of see where it goes.
And then I think he'll be a September call-up.
Yeah.
Like he'll stay around for the month of September. Mm-hmm. All right, let's pause real quick. On the other side, we have to get to Remember Me as we wrap up today's show. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we will be right back after this. Do we really want to envision a Phillies lineup without Kyle Schwarber? Because I sure don't. It's not worth the risk, the time, the money that it even is going to take. Listen, you keep your stars and you keep them where they need to be because that's what you do. The same goes for business. You don't want to have to worry about your top people being buried in operations. It's the tedious, time-consuming, redundant activities that wear them down. So you keep your impact players fresh by allowing them to focus on what matters most. That's where Togo comes in. It's an integrated part of your team that take work off of your starter's plate so they can focus on what really moves your business forward. Every single engagement starts with a free process mapping and engineering at no cost and no commitment. Togo does not bill you a dime until the real work begins. And with programs starting as low as $1,000 a month, you're not going to break the bank either. Each Togo program includes a dedicated staff, custom automations, and US-based process engineers who act as your starting pitcher. They give you complete control, total transparency, and instant efficiency. And at Togo, turning your playbook into performance is exactly what they do. Visit Harness2Go, or Togo in this case, but it's spelled Togo, TOGO.com. Scale smarter, work faster, and stay focused on winning with our friends over at Togo. And while we're here, let me tell you about Arena Club. If you're ready to level up your collection, or if you're thinking about just dipping your toes in the trading card waters, that's where Arena Club comes in. Their original slab packs bring the thrill of ripping packs combined with the power to buy, sell, and trade all in one place. It makes it easy to chase those grails, to flip slabs, and keep your collection growing on the cards that you love. Listen, card collecting has gone from something you did as a kid that was a cool hobby to a legitimate business. And with our friends over at Arena Club, it never has been easier or more fun to get in on the action. You can get authentic graded cards instantly on Arena Club. You decide to hold, sell, or have them shipped directly to you. You can also decide to take an instant cash offer based on market value with one click. There's no guesswork. And with slab packs, you can rip a wide range of packs that start at just $25. Every pack has grails that are at least 20 times the price of the pack. So head on over to Arena Club, and you can do that right now. You get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/PHLY and using the code PHLY when you check out. Thanks to our friends over at Arena Club for being a part of today's show. All right, let's get into our final segment of the day. It is our Wednesday afternoon Remember Me segment. And as we talked a little bit about in the last segment, 40-man rosters were due for protection of Rule 5 purposes by 6 o'clock yesterday. So, Ethan, I thought our Remember Me segment today would be fun by doing players that all were with the Phillies in some capacity that were Rule 5 selections. 2 of the 3 guys were selected by the Phillies. 1 ended up being a Philly later in his career. So I thought I'd take a look at 3 players that played for the Phillies after being Rule 5 selections, either here or elsewhere. Yes, they all are 20. They're 2012 or sooner. I had to go a little bit further.
This just might be hard based on, I mean, you're like Rule 5.
It's difficult.
Like
I expect this one to be difficult. Let's take a look at the first player for our Remember Me segment. This guy had an 8-year career with 3 separate teams. He was selected by the Phillies in 2012 of the Rule 5 draft. Never played for the Phillies, was returned to his original club. Ended up being a really good player. Hit 280 for his career, was a 3-time Gold Glove winner, was the 2017 All-Star representative for his team. I would say, if you think about this guy, you think about this guy as probably an Atlanta Brave.
Is that like who he was an All-Star with? That's probably my best.
Yes, he was an All-Star with the Braves that season.
All-Star in 2017 with the Braves.
The 2017 Braves were, trying to remember how good they were to give you an idea. They were 72-90. They weren't particularly good.
Yeah.
Good defender for most of his career. Really, really good defender at the beginning. Was serviceable towards the end. But this guy became a really good player. Stole 20-plus bases 3 times in his career. Hit over 300 twice. As I said, career 280 hitter. Just a really serviceable center fielder.
What? Oh, okay. Center fielder. Oh. No, not.
Played 1 year with the Mets at the end of his career. Started his career with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
What year was the Mets?
2022. Played a handful of games. Last full season was 2021 with the Braves. It is not Dansby Swanson.
2022.
Obviously. So this guy was, again, selected by the Phillies in the Rule 5 draft. Never played for the Phillies.
2022 Mets center fielder.
I wouldn't go to 22. I would use the Atlanta years as your basis.
I'm trying to think pre-Michael Harris, and no.
Led the league in games played in center field in 2018. Led the league in at-bats in 2017.
No.
Do you remember Ender Inciarte?
Nope.
This is Ender Inciarte. All right, let's go to number 2.
No.
And player number 2, 5-year career with 4 teams. Made 28 appearances with the Phillies in 2023. Missed time in 2024 due to injury and then was outrighted. This guy's career record is terrible. He's 7-32 over the course of his career, which is kind of amazing considering when he was in Philly, I thought he was serviceable. Mop-up guy for the most part. Pitched pretty poorly when he was, or pitched pretty well when they were, like trailing by a bunch or winning by a bunch. Made 28 appearances through 39 innings. Had a 3.69 ERA in that 2023 season. Has not pitched in the big leagues since, but has bounced around quite a bit through minor league systems.
Okay. I don't think it's Bailey Falter.
It is not Bailey Falter. It's this is a righty.
He still pitches.
Was not acquired in the Rule 5 draft by the Phillies, but was a Rule 5 selection. The Phillies got this guy off of waivers from the LA Dodgers.
J.D. Hammer?
Not J.D. Hammer. Hammer, I believe, was acquired in the Pat Neshek deal with the Rockies.
Wow. And by appearance, we're talking out of the bullpen, not starts, right?
He was, he made one start, 27 relief appearance.
Okay. Oh, one start, 27. And this has to be Dylan Covey.
It is Dylan Covey.
Wow.
Yes, it is Dylan Covey. Well done, Ethan.
Nice
well
job.
done, Broad Street Bullies.
No, I get no credit for that.
He had a 3.69 ERA.
Yeah.
You would have thought he had a 42 the way people talk about him.
Yeah, he wasn't too bad.
But it was just the 1 year. All right, let's get to the final one. Before we do that, let's pause. Apologies, Ethan. Let's pause. Thank you to everybody on our streaming services, our Roku, our Samsung, Xfinity viewership platforms. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. It's officially time for overtime. Now, I'm going to tell you this one. This guy, this third one, Ethan, will be amazing if you get him, because this is the dude, when you play Immaculate Grid, gets you like 0.001%. This guy is locked into my head forever for no good reason whatsoever. He played for the Phillies in 2016, was a Rule 5 draft. In fact, I believe was the number 1 pick in the Rule 5 draft the year prior. Played 92 games in his career, all coming in 2016 against with the Phillies. Hit 192 and is best known for his game-winning outfield assist versus the Reds. Threw out Eugenio Suárez at the plate. Got Cameron Rupp absolutely obliterated, which, by the way, would have been not allowed now.
Yeah.
But back in 2016, you could do it. Cameron Rupp got crushed. And then, you know, Ethan, when I think about these teams, I go, holy hell, this team sucked.
Yeah.
Do you remember this player? I have so little to give you on this guy. He played one MLB season. It was with the Phillies that year.
Yeah.
He was a good defender, plus-ish base runner, but like was never on base because he sucked. But this guy is a mess.
What position if that?
He was an outfielder.
Right.
Scrawny outfielder, 6'4", 180 pounds.
All I'm thinking of is
Broad Street Bullies, you're on the right path.
I just remember his last name because Goddard was drafted.
It's not Goddard, but it's very, very similar.
That's an interesting hint, but
shares the same first name as me.
Tyler Goddard. No.
This is Tyler Goodell.
No.
Yeah, this is the guy that if you ever play Immaculate Grid, use this dude for like played one game in the outfield Phillies, you're going to get an incredible score. It's Tyler Goodell.
Yeah, no.
This guy stunk.
I believe it.
And they kept him for the full year because they also stunk. And they were trying to get something out of him. The 2016 Phillies, unsurprisingly, were 71 and 91. Just really quickly, and before we wrap up today's show, here are the most used players at positions for that team. Cameron Rupp, catcher. Tommy Joseph, first base. Cesar Hernandez, second base. Freddie Galvis, short. Maikel Franco, third. Cody Ashe in left. Odubel Herrera in center. Peter Borges in right. With a bench of Altair, Blanco, Paredes, Ruff, Lau, Roman Quinn, Emmanuel Burris, Cedric. This team stunk.
Yeah.
And I don't even think this was the worst year record-wise, because I think the following year they lost almost 100 games.
Sounds about right.
Oh, my gosh, this team is awful. They were some depressing years. Thanks, John Middleton, for spending some money. I really appreciate you. All right, that's going to wrap up today's show. Big thank you to everybody in the chat for playing along on Remember Me. Well done by Broad Street Bullies and Rich there as well. K-Red, thanks for being here. All of our friends who are in the chat, thank you so much. We appreciate you greatly for being a part of today's show. Philadelphia comes your way at 1:30. We'll be back talking some Eagles, some Flyers, some Sixers, and we'll do it all at 1:30. Big thank you to Ethan Hartley for producing and co-hosting today's show as well. We'll be back on Friday afternoon at noon for our final edition of the PHLY Phillies podcast of the week, and then we'll get you set for your weekend on Friday as well. Thanks so much for being here. We'll be back at noon here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. We'll talk to you then. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.